You would think that common sense translates to every human being. You would think common sense flows through every living being on this planet. It doesn't. Oh.
People need to stop saying it's common sense, because sense is no longer common. That's all, thank you.
Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, Misinterspective. Today's topic is going to be about comprehension, common sense, or should I say the lack of that is within our society, within our schools, and within our communities. For something that is so important and fundamental for us to even understand human interactions, is something that's dying and not being so common, unfortunately, that we need to hopefully get back up. Because even if we look at the definition of common sense and comprehension, it states it's a fundamental aspect of human cognition that helps us with everyday decisions within our everyday life. I've compiled for you a few videos of other people's thoughts and opinions on this topic, and I'll come back with the rest of my commentary.
So I know that the topic of kids not being able to read is really big and important, but I need the adults to answer me where y'all comprehension skills went. Because especially on this here app, people aren't even asking you to read anything. They are saying it verbally. And I watch a video, and even in my own videos, I look at the comments and I'm like, where did you get this from? Someone could legit make a video and say, oh my God, y'all, the sky was so blue today. And someone will be in the comments like, but I don't understand why it is that you don't like the green grass. When was that ever stated? Where did you hear that? So now I'm seeing why the kids are falling behind, because y'all was left behind. Not everything requires you to try to read between the lines. People say what they say, and they say it with their chest. It's like, do you have no shame, or do you at least not feel goofy that you came to your own conclusion about something that had nothing to do with nothing about the video that you just watched and should have listened to and should have comprehended? I'm just really trying to understand, because I will go through my videos and listen to them over again just to make sure I said what I said. Because you're starting to scare me a lot.
A very interesting thing about this cultural and societal moment we're in, where we're realizing that people don't have reading comprehension skills, like very basic reading comprehension skills, is that people forget part of reading comprehension is being able to infer the intended audience of a piece of text without the author telling you directly. Did you know that you're supposed to be able to do that? You're supposed to be able to engage with a piece of text and say, I think the intended audience is blank. You are not supposed to need clarifications at the beginning of a text saying, now obviously I'm not talking about A, B, C, and D. You're supposed to be able to figure that out on your own, right? And so when you request those clarifications of saying, now make sure you say you're not talking about X, Y, and Z group, you lack reading comprehension skills. Does that make sense? Like, that's a skill you're supposed to have. And it seems like most people don't, and that goes hand in hand with reading comprehension.
I'm glad somebody finally said it, yo, because especially on here, you see that a lot. Intermission, though. Haircut, fresh cut.
Nah, he couldn't wait, though.
Anyway, that's like, for example, if I'm like, hey, I love me some seafood. That's some of the best food in the world, like, hands down. It's so amazing. Many people love it. And then when someone comes in my comments talking about something, how dare you? I'm allergic to crawfish. Have a heart. I wasn't talking to you, Captain Dillweed.
If you're working with older students and you think that the issue is comprehension, you really need to dig into what is it that's causing them to not be able to comprehend the work. Is it vocabulary? Are they English as a second language? Is it background knowledge? More often than not, it has something to do with their ability to quickly and efficiently decode individual words. They've been taught to read by looking at pictures and guessing in kindergarten and first grade, and as the pictures are removed, they no longer have a way to be able to make good guesses about the words, and they don't have strategies for being able to break large words down into their syllables. But guess what else? They often, even after they can break them down into their syllables, they have to be able to sound out each syllable, which requires that they know all the letter sound connections. And if they don't have automaticity, which means quick and accurate recall of the letter sound connections, they cannot decode the word.
Has anybody else noticed a decline in people's reading and listening comprehension skills over the past couple of years?
I've absolutely noticed this, where I'll post something that I feel is very straightforward and I get the wackiest comments that have nothing to do with what I said. More frustrating than that, if I happen to post anything for an audience that's interested in critical thinking, there is a portion of people, because I can't really control who receives my content, who are not capable of understanding a nuanced video, and they seem to put no effort or have no ability to like filter things through a critical thinking kind of process, and they come to these like bizarre conclusions about what I'm saying that are in no way related to my point or supported by anything that came out of my mouth. And then they will attack me like aggressively. They will decide that I'm like the worst person in the world and accuse me of believing these like crazy things that don't match what I said. This is very frustrating, as I'm sure you can imagine. So yes, I've put a lot of thought into what could be causing this, both in terms of how can I tailor content to prevent this? Am I trapped just putting a million disclaimers of all the crazy things, like tinfoil hat things that I'm not talking about? Or just what is causing people to behave this way? Something that jumped out to me in a huge way is research that I was presented with in my undergrad and grad degrees in like psychology, neuroscience, BME type topics about the effects of stress on cognition. High levels of chronic stress, I'm sorry, my dog is not cooperating. High levels of chronic stress are absolutely correlated with cognitive decline, both temporary and permanent, depending on the situation and how long it's going on in the demographic. In terms of more temporary functioning, people who are under a lot of stress have worse executive control and worse impulse control. And there are studies, though, literally showing correlations between extreme amounts of stress and like long-term cognitive decline, like dementia in certain populations. And I think that we can all agree that the last few years have been insanely stressful for a lot of people, and they've put a lot of people into some really odd situations, especially with like financial stress and a lot of social pressures and political concerns and just all sorts of things. So obviously, like, that's not enough basis to say that's what's causing anything, because in order to make any sort of causal claim in science, you need to run certain types of experiments. And I would love to be able to do that, but I left academic neuroscience because it was causing me too much stress, and I wasn't healthy because it can be kind of an abusive field. But anyway, if I was still working in the field with access to like setting up my own experiments, I would definitely be interested in looking at this. I would try to find some way to study this phenomenon and see if I could get to the bottom of it. And I would bet money, I'd bet a lot of money that there would be some correlation between the people who are chronically misunderstanding things and attacking people online and people who've been forced into very stressful situations and real or perceived social instability or financial instability by things that have happened since 2020. I really think that's what you'd find.
I'm being dead ass when I ask this. Why do people on the internet behave as though they've never encountered a generalization in their life ever? Like, why is the expectation that any broad statement that someone makes must apply directly to your unique situation? I struggle to understand it because you can't possibly traffic in the real world behaving that way. Can you?
Reading comprehension. Reading comprehension. A lot of people on this app don't have it. Reading comprehension is more than just being able to read some words and tell me what they said. You need to understand the subject. What are we talking about? You need to understand the intended audience, who is meant to hear this. And you need to understand what is actually being said and or implied without misinterpreting what was said. A skill that now in the age of discourse has withered and died. A lack of reading comprehension we see all the time is strawmanning. I think gender-affirming care should be available to people under the age of 18, whether that's just social transition or medical intervention. Do you believe in the castration and mutilation of children? That's not what I said. Hell, that's not even what I implied. That is a lack of reading comprehension. But it can also look like this. I think this intro to HRT video was pretty informative for people who know nothing about it. However, it was not as nuanced as we understand it as trans people. You need to read a book about the oppression and subjugation of trans women in our patriarchal society. I'd love to talk about it, but that's not the subject we're talking about now. That's a different subject entirely, actually.
You know what I see as a problem today? Comprehension of communication. Let me explain. You can communicate to somebody all day long. All day long. But if they don't comprehend it, they're not going to get it. And I think comprehension is lacking these days. I think we need classes on how to be a decent human being. You know how we used to have etiquette classes? I think they still give those. A lot of people need to learn how to effectively deal with conflict, effectively deal with confrontation. Just learn how to be human, because we've gotten away from that. I was talking to my son about this just the other day. Like I said, I can jump up and down, try to communicate and tell you all this, that, and the other, and the sky is green. But if you don't understand it or comprehend it, you don't get it. And I just think that is a shame. I think it's a shame that people don't actively listen. They want to talk, but they don't listen. They don't listen to comprehend. Now, I listen to comprehend and understand. And sometimes if I don't get it the first time, I'm going to ask them to repeat it. And they'll be like, oh, okay. There was a gap there that I missed. But I make it a point to understand before I run my mouth. You know, maybe some of you all need to give that assessment to yourself to see if you're doing that. But just a suggestion.
The lack of comprehension that I'm witnessing on this app is kind of blowing my mind. I know that there has been a lot of discourse as of late around this collective lack of comprehension that's going on TikTok in comment sections, and I haven't wanted to get involved in that discourse for various reasons, but after the last several days and witnessing comments and attempting to engage with people in the comment section, the lack of comprehension that I have been witnessing has been breathtaking. And it's not everyone, but it's enough to where I have honestly wondered if maybe I'm not being clear enough, if I am not speaking clearly, if I am not being clear in my point or presentation, right? I mean, you know, I could make a video saying red is my favorite color, and here are 12 reasons why red is my favorite color, and people will come into the comment section to say, well, it sounds like you're talking about the color red. So you're not talking about the color orange? So are you saying that yellow isn't as good? No, I'm simply saying that red is my favorite color. I think you're missing the point. Well, what is the point? Right? Like, these are the types of exchanges that are happening, and I honestly do not understand it. I made a video a few weeks ago talking about the adult illiteracy rates in this country and how alarming it is that so many adults struggle with reading. And yes, I know that many of the adults in those statistics are dyslexic, right? But we know that these children and these adults, young adults, adults of all ages, have been failed by multiple people, schools, parents, communities, whatever, right? And I'm wondering if this lack of comprehension that we are now witnessing on this app is correlated to any of that, because we know that adult illiteracy rates, or illiteracy rates period, are going to rise in the next few years. You know, if we thought schools were failing kids, 15 years ago, it's only worse now. If we thought there were parents that weren't plugged in to their kids' education, it's worse now, right? All the factors are still there, but it's now worse. So we are going to be seeing more and more young adults, and then eventually older adults, who struggle with reading. And I'm wondering if any of this, what we're witnessing, this phenomenon around a clear lack of comprehension, is related to that. or what else could it be? You know, I honestly, I like to try to understand something before I simply just cast judgment. It is absolutely frustrating, to be sure. I'm not going to pretend that it's not, to engage with people in this way. And there's also a lot of defensiveness that come from people when you're trying to engage, and it's clear that you're just like not, you know, they're not understanding you are not getting, they're not getting your point, right? And then there comes a point where you hit a wall and somebody walks away upset. And I just want to figure this out. You know, I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to be the one to solve this problem alone, but like, what is going on here? What can we do about this?
You know, I made a video a while back saying I think the biggest issue on TikTok is people lack resourcefulness. I was completely wrong. I think the biggest thing y'all lack on TikTok is fucking comprehension. The lack of comprehension I see on this app on a daily basis makes me scared, and I wonder how y'all graduated from 5th grade. Then I remember George Bush made No Child Left Behind, and I get my answer there. And if you don't know what that means, reading comprehension is the ability to process written text, understand its meaning, and integrate what the reader already knows. Okay? Y'all will read what somebody is saying, y'all will hear what somebody is saying, but you can't comprehend what they're saying, and then you go off on them in the comments and get mad and confused because you can't comprehend. Not because of what they said, because you can't comprehend what they said. Here's an example of what I mean. Let me give you a little scenario. I can say I was aimlessly walking down the streets of Los Angeles and I felt a droplet of rain, and then suddenly there was torrential downpour and I was soaking wet and I didn't have a hood because I didn't know it was going to be raining because I didn't see it on the news forecast. And then one of you dingbats will get in the comments and say, oh, why weren't you wearing a hood? Why didn't you bring an umbrella? Wait, where do you live again? Do y'all remember in school when you would do those reading comprehension tests where there'd be a paragraph and you'd have to be like, okay, where was she walking? What is a news forecast? What does torrential downpour mean? And I think some of y'all struggled with that. And unfortunately, you weren't given the tools to improve your comprehension and you just moved on to the next grade without getting that solid foundational skill. And instead of trying to improve your comprehension, look up words you don't understand, rewatch the video, maybe check the comments for context clues, you get mad at people in the comments because you're confused. I'm not confused. I know what I said, but you don't understand what I said. So now you're mad because of you and not me. And I think a lot of y'all lack reading comprehension because y'all don't read. You haven't read a book since the 10th grade. You're still trying to process what was going on in The Great Gatsby. I think you should read more. I think you should ask more critical questions. I think you should understand context clues and literary devices and just really work your way through material that is given to you instead of automatically jumping to a wrong conclusion because you can't comprehend. Yes, absolutely. We all know reading is fundamental, but comprehension is critically vital.
Children lacking basic reading comprehension skills and not being able to read in general is like the mirror image of adults lacking basic media literacy skills on any kind of social media or like in relevance to anything. It's literally the same thing in just two different communities, but let me give an example. So I used to babysit for like 4 or 5 years. And while babysitting, I would often help the kids out with their homework. Now, I was babysitting this 12-year-old and we were reading this small like little story, and it was an easy story. But it was clear to me that the poor boy lacked reading comprehension skill. But anyway, we read the whole story and then we came to the questions, and some of the questions were really easy, like what time was the story made in, where was the story located in, stuff like that. But then there was a question that required like context clues and comprehension skills, and it was not that hard, but I'll give you an example. So let's say the question was, why couldn't Goofy hang out with Mickey Mouse today? And in the story, it told us something like Mickey Mouse was in the house chasing something for Minnie, right? So Mickey Mouse was busy. But the story never verbatim tells you that Goofy cannot hang out with Mickey because Mickey is busy doing something for Minnie. So when I asked him the question, he was dumbfounded. And I was like, okay, what seems to be the issue? Like, what is it that's confusing you about the question? He's like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, what is Goofy doing? And he's like, well, Goofy's waiting to hang out with Mickey Mouse. And I'm like, okay, and what is Mickey doing? And he's like, well, Mickey Mouse is chasing this, that, and the third for Minnie. And I'm like, so what's the problem here? And so we went through this over and over again. And I'm not a teacher, so I don't know the methods that could have been used to help him get to the answer himself. But I gave up and I actually just gave him the answer. To where I was like, so let's say Goofy wants to hang out with Mickey, but Mickey's in the house doing something for Minnie. This makes Mickey not available to go play with Goofy. And so that's the reason why they can't hang out. And I said all of this to him. And I said, do you understand? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, so what's the answer? And he still could not give it to me. He still could not say the answer that I said, so let alone say an answer in his own words. And I was really shocked, but it was one of the first times this happened to me, right? But now I'm noticing the same patterns, like on social media, especially on TikTok where I make videos. When we're talking about people's understanding of context clues, comprehension skills, media literacy, it's like for adults, you have to say the whole thing in order for them to understand something. It's like on social media, you have to say every single thing, include every other what-ifism and whataboutism and all that stuff in order for people to understand you. If I come on this app and say, well, I don't like turtles, somebody's going to say, well, what about the seals? And it's also like people can't handle complex characters on TV shows anymore, right? We have these characters that are full of flaws, regular people, good or bad, just people full of flaws. And the way like people talk about them online, it's like, everything that the creator did, everything that the director of the show, the producer, the person who created the character did, just it's not even here with us. And again, I feel like they're the same thing, just reflective in two different communities, but I feel like we're backpedaling on our ability to, I don't know, be resourceful with the information that's been given to us. And I'm worried for the children, but I'm also worried for us, because it's like, what?
Okay, this is the third time I'm recording this because I keep thinking of new stuff, but the kids have been needing help with their homework since before COVID, okay? Like, when I was in middle school, high school, a little bit of college, like, I would help my mom grade papers, and she was a teacher. She's been a teacher, like, my whole life, and she's a librarian now for the school system. But, like, from about 2018 until, like, before 2018, really, I would help my mom grade papers, right? And, like, when I was in high school, so, like, take 2013, 2014 to 2018, when she was teaching second and third grade, and we all know about the third grade gate, I'd be helping her grade like social studies papers, whatever, and they have to read a passage or look at a map or something to answer these questions. Answer wouldn't have nothing to do with the passage, the map, or the question sometime. And when that happened, I got to go back up front and be like, Mom, what you want me to do with this? Like, this has nothing to do with it. And she's like, okay, since this is a little better than what they've been doing, give them like a 2 out of 5. This is better than what they've been doing. On top of that, penmanship, next, like none to speak of. Like the whole thing is like broken down. The kids are not operating on their grade level at all, and they haven't been. However, COVID just pushed that into the forefront, right? It just made everybody aware. And the issue is, y'all should have been aware of that as parents already. Because when I was in school, people were struggling with reading comprehension, right? The people our age are still currently struggling with reading comprehension. Have you been on this app? Or the blue one? I guess it's black now, but whatever. Have you been on either of the apps? You know the whole, if I say I like pancakes and somebody says, oh, so you don't like waffles? That's all that is. This is nothing new. This has been happening for 40 years, right? We're not acting like everybody on these platforms graduated with soaring flying colors or graduated. Everybody got their different things. You dig what I'm saying? What I'm saying is the kids are not unintelligent. The people our age are generally not unintelligent. They just aren't taught critical thinking, different issue, but they just haven't been taught to operate within the framework of school, right? Because the way you're successful in school is if your parents know what's going on. That's like the only way. I didn't realize how many people, like, are my age, above or below, doesn't matter. Their parents just didn't know what was going on in their school life. They didn't know if they was passing or failing. They just trusted their kids to, like, do whatever. As long as you weren't really failing, it was just like, okay, cool, as long as you move to the next grade, whatever. Your kid has straight D's and hasn't turned in an assignment in months. And you're like, everybody got to work. Everybody got to do their thing. It's tough and it's difficult. I understand that, but that's being a parent. Your whole life is sacrificed after you have that child, okay? Your whole life is just that person that almost. It's not supposed to be, but that's how it is. That's how things happen here, okay? It is your responsibility to take this being that you forced into like a painful existence. You're supposed to help them. It isn't like, yeah, everyone else should help out of the goodness of their heart, and the school's doing the best they can, and you doing the best you can as a parent. You got to do more. I hate to say that. You got to read to your kids. You gotta read to your kids. You gotta sit there and help them with their homework. Not abusing them. You gotta help them with their homework. Like, it's imperative. The teachers need help. You know that they're not paying the teachers nothing, and they still doing the best they can. They not getting no funding, okay? Just like everybody getting shafted out of their work, so is the school system, all right? On purpose. Another conversation. However, it's disingenuous to be like, oh, this is a new issue. This issue has just been cycling itself over and over, and it's evident in your peers, okay? Some folks can't read. Why do you think people like TikTok so much? People can just say stuff to you now. On Twitter, it was like, dang, 140 characters is a little long. People might not like me for that. However, when I judge you for your situation, I'm saying that you can complain. Complaining is real. It shouldn't have to be like this. But as a parent, you do need to be knowledgeable about what your kid is doing in school. Just point blank, period. If you got to relearn a little algebra, do that. If you got to remember like some sentence structure, do that, okay? It's on you. It's on you. I don't know. This is not new. It's not.
Common sense is not so common anymore. I just saw a video of a girl who was really mad because she made a video of how she made bean soup, and then someone commented saying, but what if I don't like beans? Like, so funny, but it's so irritating. I made a video a while ago talking about how I keep my phone in my closet to prevent myself from getting distracted by it, and I can do my work. I can do this because I can do my work on my other devices. The comments. So many people were saying, but all my work is on my phone. Like, this is impractical advice. All my work is on my phone. Dah kalau tak boleh tu, janganlah buat. You got people making tutorials for strawberry milk, and people in the comments will be like, but I'm allergic to strawberries. Then don't freaking... Do we have to start teaching common sense in schools? Does it have to be a school subject? Someone could make a fried rice recipe, super simple, and some comments will still be like, but what if I want to add extra onions? What if I want to add extra garlic? Tak meletup pun nasi goreng tu.
Common sense is not a common practice. Having common sense is to have prudent judgment based on a simple perception of the situation or facts. If you let what you hear sway your judgment on how you perceive things, these words apply to you. You lack wisdom in simple things. And that's why God gives you simple things. And with those simple things, you can't even hold on to that. So next time you ask God, why this and why that, look in the mirror and ask yourself, do I have common sense?
Now that we understand common sense is not so common and the ways and the reasons as to why that could be, we now have a moment to look at ourselves introspectively and see as to whether we are introspective, comprehensive, and have common sense at the same time. Deeply look at yourself, the conversations you've had in the past week, month, as to see whether you fully comprehended what others were saying. If you haven't, I invite you to talk to people around you as to what they truly meant, and also look within yourself to see what things you're not fully comprehending about yourself as well. I would also urge you to continue your education, continue your studies, continue anything that you can in order to make sure that your comprehension skills build and not wither away. But in saying that, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.